Hi, 6th graders. We are starting chapter 6, so make sure you have a fresh, clean page in your notebook. And at the very top, write 6-1 ratios. And the lesson starts on page 282 in your textbook, if you like to write that down. The learning target is writing ratios in simplest form and determining whether two ratios are equivalent. So at the top of your page, you should just have 6-1 ratios if you want to write on the very, very top, chapter 6. But a nice, clean, blank, new starting point in your notebook for chapter 6. So a ratio is a comparison of two quantities by division. So this is a word that you will want to write in your notebook. Ratio, and then write the definition, a comparison of two quantities by division, which means you have two items, two things, two quantities, and we compare them by dividing. So a few different ways to write a ratio. You could write it as 3-4. You could write it as 3 with a colon 4, and this would be read as 3-4 as well. You could write it as a fraction, 3/4, or it can be read as 3 out of 4. Or it could also be read 3-4 or 3/4. So there's a few different ways to write ratios. Ratios are equivalent if they have the same value. So just like fractions can be equivalent, they can have a different numerator and denominator, but they can be equivalent. So the same goes for ratios. To set up a ratio, we need to know what numbers are being compared. We need to write the numbers that are being compared as a fraction. The first item listed is the numerator. The second item is the denominator. And then we always write the fraction in simplest form. So if we have this example, Janine has a bag with 3 video cassettes, 4 marbles, 7 books, and 1 orange. And it's laid out in this table right here. So our first question asks, what is the ratio of books to marbles? So we have books and we have marbles. The first item, remember, is our numerator. So books, there's 7 books, and then there's 4 marbles. So 7/4, or 7 out of 4, or 7 books to 4 marbles. We actually leave it as a fraction, as an improper fraction like this. Even though a mixed number would be simplest form, we would, because ratios are always a fraction, can be a fraction, we want to keep it though, since we've written it as a fraction, we want to keep it like this. If we can simplify, like finding a common factor that both the numerator and the denominator can be divided by, then we want to simplify it down. Okay, the ratio of video cassettes to marbles. So we have video cassettes are 3, and then marbles is 4. So 3, for every 3 video cassettes, there's 4 marbles. What is the ratio of video cassettes to the total number of items in the bag? So there's 3 video cassettes, that's our first, so it goes on the top. And then the total number, so 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15. So 3/15 or 3-15. 3 video cassettes out of all of 15. We can simplify this because we can divide both 3 and 15 by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So 1/5 of the items in the bag are video cassettes. Alright, use the information in the table to write each ratio as a fraction in simplest form. So field trip statistics. So if we were going to write how many adults to students, so it's written as with our colon here. So we're going to write this I'm going to write a ratio with the colon. So there's 24 adults to 180 students. Okay? And then we want to see if we can simplify it, which I know that they're both even, so we can simplify them for sure by, we can divide them both by 2, but I'm going to see if they can both be divided by 4, because I know that 24 can be divided by 4. So 180 divided by 4 is 45. So I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to use a different color. 24 divided by 4 is 6. 180 divided by 4 is 45. And that is all I can do because they both cannot be simplified further. So this tells me that there was 24 adults on the field trip and 180 students, but once we simplify it, it tells us that there was 6 adults for every 45 students. Students to buses, so this time, so we write 180 first, because that's our first item, and then buses is 180 to 4. So there's 180 students to 4 buses. So I'm going to rewrite it. Oops. That's supposed to say 180 over 4. So 180 to 4. We can rewrite it like this. And I know that 180 divided by 4 is 45. So that tells us, and we're going to leave it like this, that tells us that there was 45 students for every one bus. So on every bus there was 45 students. Okay, I want you to do buses to people and adults to people. So write buses to people and adults to people in your notebook, and then I'll scroll back up so you can see the table. So buses to people, there's 4 buses, and then the total amount of people would be 180 plus 24 plus 4, so we have 208, so 4 to 208. So if we rewrite it as a fraction, we have 4 over 208. 208 divided by 4 is 52. So 4 divided by 4 is 1 over 52. So that tells us for every bus there was 52 people. So there was adults. We just found out that there was 45 students per bus, but then we add the adults. So 52 people per bus. And then adults per people, there's 24 to 208, and then 208, so both of them divided by 4, we have 6 over 52, and then if we divide both of them by 2, we have 3/26. So there's 3 adults for every 26 people on the field trip. Okay, if we have 30 seconds to 5 minutes, it would make sense that we would write it as 30, trying to write this fast, to 5. But they need to be in the same units. So that actually is not what we would do. First, we need to convert it to the same units. So what we would need to do is we need to figure out how many seconds are in 5 minutes. And we know that there's 60 seconds in a minute. So 5 times 60 equals 300 seconds. So now we can write it as 30 to 300. And I know off the top of my head that they can both be divided by 10. So I'm going to divide both my numerator and denominator by 10. So 30 divided by 10 is 3. 300 divided by 10 would be 30. And then I can see again that they can both be divided by 3. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. And 30 divided by 3 is 10. And I know that I could have just done everything divided by 30 and gotten to 1/10, and if that's what you were thinking, you totally could have done that. Sometimes in our head it's just easier to think, oh, I can just divide by 10 and then go from there. So either way. So this tells us now we converted it down, so it's 30 seconds to 5 minutes would be, so this tells us that it's 1 second to 10 seconds because we converted this to seconds. So, these both are seconds. So 30 seconds, if we took one of these seconds, it would be just 10 seconds of one of those minutes. 8 ounces to 2 pounds, we need to convert to the same units again. So I know that ounces is smaller than pounds, so I can convert pounds to how many ounces, and I know that there's 16 ounces in a pound. So I'm going to go 2 times 16, and I get 32. So then my ratio is going to be 8 ounces to 32 ounces. I can divide both 8 and 32 by 8, so this can actually be simplified to 1 to 4. 1 ounce to 4 ounces. These would both be ounces because we changed that. Okay, determine whether the two ratios are equivalent. So now we're given two ratios and we need to simplify them down to see if they are equal. So 250 miles in 4 hours, so we would write this as a ratio 250 over 4, because it's telling us 250 miles in 4 hours. And then we have 500 miles in 8 hours. So before I simplify this, I can already see that 250 times 2 and 4 times 2 equals 500 over 8. So I already know that they're going to be equivalent. But 250 divided by 4 equals 62.5 over 1. Oops, I didn't leave my... That's telling us that we're going 62.5 miles in 1 hour. And then 500 divided by 8 is also 62.5. So that's telling us we're also going 62.5 miles in 1 hour. 2 cups of flour to 8 cups of sugar, and then 8 cups of flour to 14 cups of sugar. So we have 2 cups of flour to 8 cups of sugar. So because they're different items, but they're the same units, so they're both cups. Okay, but 2 cups of flour to 8 cups of sugar. We can simplify this to 1/4. And now I have 8 cups of flour to 14 cups, so 8 over 14. We can divide both by 2, so we get 4/7. And I know that 1/4 is 0.25. Sometimes it's hard to figure out if they are, obviously they are different, but sometimes it's hard to figure out which is greater or smaller. So if you convert it to a decimal, and if we take 4/7, 4 divided by 7 is 0.57. So we know that these ratios are not equivalent because they simplify out to different numbers. So if you were making a recipe and you decided to change it to this, it wouldn't work because your measurements are a little bit off. Okay, I want you to pause me and try to do this one on your own. So Derek Jeter had 32 hits out of 93 times at bat. Jorge Posada had 11 hits out of 31 times at bat. Are these ratios equivalent? So we have 32 over 93. And then we have 11 over 31. So I know that if I multiply 31 times 3, I would get 93. So then I would do the top. So I have 33 93rds, which is not equivalent to 32 93rds. So they are not equivalent. If you divided and you took 32 and you divided it by 93, you would get 0.34. And if you took 11 and you divided it by 31, you would get 0.35. So they are just a tad different. Okay, so make sure you log into NICU and take the 6-1 NICU quiz. Remember, you can always rewatch for better understanding. And remember, you need to bring your math notebook with your notes to class every single day. Have a super evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.